I'm Alistair Cook. I'm the host of the lead for Cloud Field Day. So we're going to kick off this particular roundtable with a discussion of what is AI anyway? And so what is AI? Because it used to be that AI ML was the acronym that we all knew about. This was the thing that was going to save us because it would be able to look at all of our data and give us insightful guidance about what might be happening in the future. And then this behemoth rolled out of nowhere, released into the wild before it was really ready. And generative AI turned up. And all of a sudden, AI ML is not what AI is. And AI now has to be Gen AI. And we had all of these people at keynote conferences telling us all about Gen AI, which probably sounds better if you don't have a New Zealand accent. So, panelists, delegates, what the heck is AI anyway?
Well, Alistair, it's funny you should mention that. I think we saw this with Selector AI. In fact, it's interesting if you Google them, they're Selector. But in the presentation, they were Selector AI, and in certain places they've added that AI goodness on the end, and I think that has to do with what you're talking about, which is the rise of Gen AI and the collective buzz around it. But as we found in their presentation, it got very muddled because they'd been working with ML before, machine learning, which is a form of AI, and then now they've got AI in the front end with LLMs. And when I say AI in the front end, I mean generative AI. And they just kind of mixed their messages, and it was very confusing. So I think if you're going to be talking about both, you need to be clear on which one you're talking about, because I think ML has been around in some form or another for a long time, and it's much more baked than Gen AI is, which is much flashier, which is much more accessible conceptually to the public, myself included. It's just you go in, you put something in, and ChatGPT responds and fills something out within 10 seconds, less than 10 seconds. So
I think we have a problem because the academics broke our brains because they came out like it was neural networks in the 70s. That's what a lot of them went to school for. And then it was machine learning. Remember, machine learning is like calculus. But what you do with calculus is AI, like the thing. AI is the thing you do with machine learning. AI is like, the product of machine learning. Machine learning is the science, but AI is something that goes beyond the math behind it. I think that's what blew it up. And even there's a company that I knew, they were called OctoML. And after 18 months of getting beaten up trying to explain what they do, they changed the name to Octo AI, and no one asked what they do. Exactly the same company, but because AI was now associated to a lot of other things versus machine learning was just, it just did. Yeah, and it's, I don't know why. It was probably Gen AI that broke all of us, that became the thing we would call it. But
broke us meaning like our spirits, or when you broke what?
Oh, everything.
The bank?
It broke our understanding of what real words mean,
okay.
Which is a tough part too. We also have marketing versus reality, and oh boy, I could go on for an hour on that one.
You could. Stop you.
Didn't we hear chatbots are AI? I mean,
Yeah.
chatbots have been around for years. I mean, isn't that AI ops? Let me throw that buzzword out.
Well, I think
ML ops.
For the longest time, AI was the future that wasn't here yet. And once it arrived, we gave it a new name. So chatbots were AI, but then they became chatbots, and we stopped calling them AI because it's just a thing that I have. And image recognition. Well, we got used to image recognition. So that's not AI anymore. That's just image recognition. And then generative AI came along, and somehow it's managed to retain the AI label and in a way muddy the waters for everything else. Because when anybody says AI now, it's safe to assume they're talking about an LLM.
Right.
And so we ran into that with some of the presentations over the last 2 days. Is someone would mention AI, and we had to get them to clarify what they meant by that, because in some cases they were talking about multiple different types of AI within their product. And there were parts where it's like, okay, it's great that you're using AI to make the response more friendly or make the interface more friendly, but you're using AI in this other thing where I'm very scared you're going to give me bad information or hallucinate. And they had to roll back and go, oh no, that's just regular old machine learning over here. I was like, well, just say that. I know you want to say AI everywhere, but we've poisoned that term.
We could say algorithm instead, but it's no longer fun to say that one.
So I think you have a good point that people just get, if you say AI, they get sucked into an LLM or generative AI. But I think at a really base level, what AI is and should mean is, computing doing something intelligent that it's not explicitly told to do. So that's really where, machine learning becomes part of it, because you're just giving it data and then it figures out what the result is versus just hard coding it. So saying, oh, it's AI, it's not machine learning. Well, that's kind of a silly statement, because all these LLMs are machine learning. That's what they are. There's obviously all sorts of different machine learning algorithms, but I think the conversation needs to go back to, well, what's the point of artificial intelligence in the first place?
That we need classification. There's image recognition, there's natural language processing, there's recommendation engines, and now there are generative AI tools that offer something different. In the case of cloud, because that's why we're here, the question is, what AI is required to oversee a cloud? And where is the value in all of those categories in the application of what we're talking about?
And so we see in all of the major clouds, there is a little chatbot interface that's using a large language model. So although yes, we've had chatbots for a long time, they often were very script driven and narrow in what they would produce. And so they were, as Mitch says, they were very much directed. This is the path you go. Whereas the generative AI models, and I definitely think we need this distinction between generative AI and what's I normally refer to as predictive AI, which is the machine learning part. This is saying, based on the patterns of the past, this is what's going to happen in the future. And that's exactly how large language models work. It's just that their vision of the past is not nearly as specific. And still, large language models are neural networks.
I'm not certain that that's the right framing to think about AI, is how does it apply to the cloud? It's a little bit like asking, how does TCP help with the cloud?
Oh, I was just talking about our conversation this week because we're at Cloud Field.
Yeah. No, I totally, I get that. But I think AI as itself is such a foundational, large spanning technology that it's more akin to something like TCP, though not as standardized, that it's going to be useful in so many different ways and with so many different applications that it's hard to just zoom in and go, well, what is TCP good for? Well, it's good for transporting data from one place to another and doing a lot of handshakes. It's like a politician, but
Not DNS, Ned.
well, you can use a TCP for DNS. It just sucks.
And there's a lot more handshaking, but you can use it for a lot of more data transfer and use it as a data.
AI is really good at taking really large volumes of data and finding patterns and munging it into something that humans can use. And that is so broadly applicable that we haven't even started to distill the number of use cases now that we have the hardware and the tool set to start using it effectively.
I think that's a big problem, use cases, right? So we can go on and we can use ChatGPT to say what hotels are available this time of year in Madrid, because my family and I are thinking of going. But I think in the business areas, when you start talking about Gen AI, there's just not a real good understanding of how it can help the businesses. And I think machine learning, much more practice, much more understood, but a lot less sexy, more on the back end. I mean, you've got AI that you're helping to run your own business, and then you've got AI that customers might be using, and there's different vantage points and frameworks. So those are.
I think Allison snuck one in that I want to jump on further. Is that I think you hit the question that answers itself. Is it AI, the cloud enabled us to experiment quickly with AI. And one of the first things we began to do was to use that AI to then try to manage the cloud to optimize how we produce AI. We actually have the first managing ecosystem there where we're putting a lot of compute and ideas towards how do we do ML and AI effectively, cheaply, properly, and we're using it to help us build it.
Mhm.
This is the first time where the technology is helping us to make the technology better, which is probably why the machines are going to eventually take over. And that's why I say thank you every time I end ChatGPT. So it won't kill me first.
You're so pleasant.
Yeah.
There's also a piece I wanted to bring in from Ned, which was that a lot of the machine learning, the traditional AI, or what I often refer to as production AI, is now just a feature of something. We've all seen the big enterprise management tools that'll take in a whole host of data and work out what the trends are. That's no longer being sent to us as shown to us as being an AI ML, an ML tool. It's just, this is the way it works. It's just a feature. I don't think we're seeing a lot of it's just a feature with generative AI. Is that to do with maturity and the timing?
I think it is just a feature.
I think
Every
that-
single company that has presented and included generative AI, it's just a feature of their much larger product set.
Usually to chat with their dogs.
Right, but I think part of the problem with where we're at is there's so much hype around it that people bring the AI part right to the front and they slap AI on the end of their name. But they need to get back to the business use case and that, they're doing intelligent monitoring or they're doing intelligent, travel booking or whatever, but that's a feature of, whatever their actual business use case is.
I don't want to
Can you
bring it up,
restate
but
your
there's the
question?
metaverse.
I just want to make sure I understood what angle you're coming at it from.
So my primary angle is that AI is not a product. AI is, and particularly generative AI, is a feature to be used in a product, right? Coming back to Cloudfield Day 20, Bobby Ellett, right? AI is not the thing. AI is the thing that makes the thing better.
It's a tool.
It's a tool, it's a feature, it's something that we're going to use, and that's why traditional machine learning has disappeared. John, are you seeing lots of products that actually have generative AI in them as a feature? Are we not there yet?
No, not at all. In fact, I feel that no matter where you go, you walk down a conference, you see the latest website or something, and there's an AI word in it, right? And they're just, we're doing AI. No, you've been doing automation behind the scenes. You've been doing a feature of it, but you're not doing AI. Everybody takes in and thinks about AI, and they think generative AI right away. That we, like Ned said, we've muddied the water so bad that we're all assuming it's generative AI. We're going to be doing something. We're going to be asking questions and getting the answers. It's pulling it from the LLMs and it's pulling all the information. But in actuality, they have been doing a form of AI for a while. They just threw it on there for their marketing. And I think we need to kind of get away from just calling everything AI and really what are we doing with that? Eric mentioned the intelligence. We're doing this thing that's ultimately helping you better. And it's not AI. We're just doing some automation and intelligence behind the scenes. Are we ever going to, not everybody needs AI. No, not everybody needs generative AI in their product.
Especially generative AI. I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of it is just getting rushed out because they want to have it on their product. Like
Yeah.
your point about all the cloud providers have the chatbots. Does anyone ever actually get any use out of those things? I feel like they're generally useless. Right?
They take so long to type in and you're talking to it and it's still the AI thing that they had originally. It's not generative.
Right.
Oh, please press 1 for this prompt list. Like, okay, did you please select from these options?
Or even
talking
the
about
ones that,
business
even the ones that,
applications,
or even the
not
ones that teach you like, okay, how can I do this in Cloud X? Like, how do I build this in AWS? I don't find those things to be particularly useful compared to just reading some good documentation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is the interesting challenge. Are we actually the real audience anymore? Like the people that are going to be most profoundly affected by AI are not the people in this room. Like we're going to ride this beautiful wave to whatever's next, just like we did with cloud and OpenStack. And well, I did anyways. And sorry, I was the only one that was team OpenStack. I tried. And hardware and whatever. I mean, you come out of fab and chip world. Here we are talking about cloud and AI. We'll survive it, but 7 billion people will be affected by it. far more impactfully than we will in this room.
And drop the mic. We're out.
I do think that we need to, I wasn't kidding, Ned. I do think we need to think about, we're talking about how to manage clouds, right? I think that there are a ton of use cases for generative AI across industries, especially where people use a lot of words.
Mm.
Customer service. These are not use cases that would apply typically to IT environments. We know that machine learning has been integrated into a lot of cloud control, especially within the largest of clouds. I do think that there is pressure on companies, especially companies who are seeking valuations, to associate themselves with AI because VCs are providing better
Mhm.
valuations for AI-related companies. It's just the truth. So we should expect to continue to see this.
Allison, I love that you touched on customer service and that use a lot of words, because a lot of the companies you talk to, oh, we have AI in our customer service now. No, I still have to say representative 100 times. And I don't get representative. I go back to the beginning thing. I literally want to tell you, today I would like to actually talk to somebody real. Sure, we'll get you that. No, please. So that's exactly right. They use a lot of words that say they're using AI, but they're not really using AI. They're just using their automated system to pull out keywords.
Bring back movie phone, but because you pick up the phone, it already knows what you really want to see, and it just tells you go see Batman. It doesn't even wait. It's like, just go see this one. It's playing at 7.
I do think that content creators, of which many of us are one of the earliest markets for adoption of generative AI. At my company, we use it every single day, all day long, creating images, trying to create efficiencies in terms of content generation. I think that that's a very important aspect to think about how this technology applies. It's just like visual recognition would only apply to the industries where that is valuable. It's not that we can just say that every single industry is going to change because of that particular technology. So maybe the question that we should be asking is, how do IT departments change, if at all, based on Gen AI? What's the answer?
Yeah, and which parts of the drudgery, the repetitive tasks, the things that don't bring joy to most workers, which of those things can we take away with the AI?
One of the most interesting developing portions of AI is, and I don't like this term, but it's the one we picked, agentic AI.
Oh, you had to go there.
I'm so sorry.
We're going to need another half hour tacked on the back of this one.
I was having a very interesting conversation with one of the people who wasn't a presenter, John Capobianco. He was with Selector, but he didn't get to present. We were talking about how he has been testing out agentic AI on his local machine. And he told me a story. And I'm sorry, I'm stealing this from you, John, but he asked the AI to copy a file from its local system to a remote system and didn't really give it much in the way of instructions on how to do it. So it attempted to use SCP to send the file over, but then quickly realized that when you use SCP, it prompts you for a password, and the agentic AI couldn't type in the password. So instead, it downloaded a utility that will inject the password into the process, and then use that utility to inject the password into the process and got the file transferred. That is wild. And if you think about the drudgery of what IT workers need to do, if there's an agent that can accomplish a task for them and they don't have to be so procedural about it, that is going to make their lives a lot easier. Of course, who gets the blame when it does it wrong? When it breaks production, you can't point at the AI, you point at the person who kicked off the agent.
Yeah, and then we are heading towards that singularity where the machines take over the world. Thank you very much for downloading a replacement for your owner, and
Here comes
also spreading that AI from the source machine where you're running it to the destination one. So of course, the AI has to be on the destination to be able to confirm the transfer is complete. It's only logical.
It is only logical.
I never liked the word reason or think. Like, reasoning is it's a very tricky word, and what we talk about what AI is doing and agentic AI is getting closer to that, where it can at least sense of like the realm of capability of another agent, and it will ask it to do things, and it does, work around some stuff, which is pretty interesting. And then the irony is that they become very good at reasoning, but the people that built it like probably wouldn't pass a Turing test. There's incredible amount of mathematics behind the stuff to then try to simulate, reasoning. But then as soon as you get over to mathematical reasoning, it falls apart, which is interesting. I start to think like, what bloody meatware are we that we can just be replaced easily for the task-based stuff? Yet, the really complex stuff is there. So then it becomes, where do we use AI most effectively?
There's the classic example of the way you trip up a generative AI to do math, and you say, I picked 7 apples from one tree and 6 apples from another tree. 3 apples were red. How many apples did I have? And the AI says, well, 7, 6, 3. Clearly you had 16 apples. But we all know I only had 13. Sounds like the US, the British postal system treated their postmasters, but that's a whole other can of worms that probably isn't relevant to the US audience. Did want to circle back again to Alison's starting point of AI actually changing the way clouds are managed, because we know we see a huge amount of complexity in the environments that are being built on clouds, and that seems like a place where replacing humans with something that understands large groups of very structured data might be a good thing. Has anybody been using any, well, that'd be ML tools for managing cloud?
Well, I know Mike is big into the FinOps portion of things. Have you seen useful implementations of AI and ML for the FinOps movement?
I can't really say that I've seen that so far. I don't know what John's opinion is on that, but I feel like that's where everyone wants to go, right? And it's kind of, they always talk about the two sides of it. There's the AI for FinOps, and then there's FinOps for AI, right? Which is like, how am I going to optimize the AI spend versus, using FinOps processing on the cloud spending data. So
right.
I don't know that I've seen really groundbreaking developments in that area so far.
There hasn't been anything that's really been implemented company-wide or world enterprise-wide, while other companies are investing in it and looking into it in order to say, what are my top spends in this region for the environment, and real generative AI pulling, and well, not real generative AI because it's AI and real-time data. But like Mike said, the biggest discussion in the last year has been, can we use AI for FinOps? And what about FinOps monitoring our AI usage?
Yeah.
Because is it worth it? Is it the thing? So there's two sides of the coin for it. And is it cost effective to use it for FinOps? Because FinOps is all around.
Let's ask AI.
It's like AWS.
AI says keep it because else you'd kill me. So I need to stay living.
Do not downsize me.
Yes. Yeah. Literally, they're the only ones that are exclusion.
The multiplying factor with using AI for anything is huge. Like, how did we get to where we are? I think, like, as humans, we all came together as a group because a lot of us came from the VMware ecosystem. And how did we get better at it? We've met with a bunch of other people in a room who had done similar things that we learned from. Almost like an LLM, where we continue to add knowledge to the room and we could pick and pull from it. But that was a very human, hand-to-hand type of transfer of knowledge. Now I can go in, and all of that knowledge about how thousands and millions of ways you can build VMware infrastructure, it's inside all sorts of LLMs. So I can ask it a question in fast path to the next thing. But there's also an opportunity to go and say, what are the learning steps I should go through as I look at, I want to learn about how to use Lambda versus how to use EC2. I can go to this tool and have it really guide me towards, and it's based on how other people have done things in reality.
Mhm.
I would never have access to that level of learning. And sure, it's wrong. It's going to send you a bunch of different roads, but so will the person at the AWS user group, because how they did it may not be the right way. It's going to be a way. So
Yeah.
I think that's a huge multiple factor.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, Charlotte, go right
Go ahead.
Hey. No, I was just gonna say, yeah, one of the ways I tend to use AI, I don't know, I have like this battle because a lot of times I feel like when people say AI, a lot of people I know who are not, in the tech space, they instantly think of ChatGPT. I think that's something as well. where there's just a lot of training. But I like to use things like ChatGPT and Gemini and other stuff like that, and Claude and whatnot. Especially ChatGPT. I use it to create my own form of learning. To your point, where I straight up just create my own learning path because I have the way that I like to learn. So one of the things I do is stuff like code theft auto. So I teach people how to terraform, which is really just teaching myself terraform by incorporating a Grand Theft Auto theme to it. And then I turned it into a tabletop game because in college I played Dungeons and Dragons. And so it's just like this whole thing, but that's how I like to use it. But I do want AI in cloud to do things like sometimes I'm running into a networking issue and I would love to be able to type in and say, hey, let's take AWS with Amazon developer with Q. And I'm just like, okay, you see, I'm getting this error. You see what the error is. Okay, well, just go fix it for me. And then I can go do these other things. That would be nice.
Q is nice because it has the context of your live environment within it. So there's an advantage that they have because they own access to your tenant data. So you can actually get really good RAG level of intelligence because it knows what you're actually running in your environment. So there's added context. What we then don't get though is now this is the competitive play. How do I do this in Azure versus AWS versus Google? And what's the AI that knows that answer right? So they're all different levels of lives between the the bunch of them. But I think that's each individual one. If you stay within an ecosystem, it's going to be very cool. But I do like the idea that there should be a broader, almost a democratized, shared place where we know there's less chance of influence towards a bias.
So in the coding assistant and beyond that, software development AI assistant, Microsoft Copilot is the big one in market that has interesting reputation. But then all of these tools have an interesting reputation. But to satisfy Eric, I am blanking on the name of a company that briefed me a little while ago that has a cloud and vendor neutral software development AI for their entire software lifecycle, including the sort of more expert system of when I start a new project, just lay that out for me. Lay out how I'm actually going to approach building my entire application, the pipeline beyond it, the authorizing. It isn't just I type a prompt in comments in my code and it tells me how to connect to an S3 bucket, for the example that I literally taught in AWS training courses. So yeah, there can be much more and much more diverse places.
We used to make fun of it because we would say, like, don't use ChatGPT because it was just trained on Stack Overflow and Reddit, and it doesn't really act like a human. I said, you just described my lead developer. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it did it at scale. Like, we can ask it things and it can be wrong, but as long as it's right enough that it leads us towards something. I just don't take it at nothing you should read out of a lot of these inputs when generative AI is in place is de facto truth. There is no objective final answer.
Well, it's sort of like we used to tell people not to use Wikipedia.
Right.
But now, I mean, that's the first thing that I go and look at when I'm looking for more information.
That's right.
And then I'll follow the links to the additional references. But that's my first stop, and it tends to be far more accurate than if I ask somebody sitting next to me about it, So I think coding assistants, are they always going to get it right? No, but neither is a human. And if it can increase how quickly I can develop software that helps me manage the cloud, hey, brought it back, then that for me is a net plus. The next step beyond that is to share that information with others. So having a virtuous cycle where, I just figured out a much more efficient way to manage this portion of Azure. Now I need a way to share that with the model and with other people who are facing similar tasks. And maybe that's where things tie into open source and, publishing your work and then having an AI being able to legitimately ingest that as part of a feedback loop. And I don't know if we've really figured out that portion of it. And I feel like that's like another hour-long discussion.
And on that note, I am going to follow the grand tech field day tradition of saying, we're out of time, folks. We could go on for hours, and we are going to stop right now.
30 more.
Thank you for joining us on this Delegate Roundtable here at Cloud Field Day 22.